so I'm actually doing this on a weekend. But I like that because even though I get so busy on weekends just doing all the other things, it's nice sometimes to stop, pause, and say hi because you get a different group of people who chime in and are available to listen to these, which is lovely. And I'll keep my eye out for my co-host this week. We'll be talking about books, writing, publishing, everything between. I've talked to him before one of these, and actually we both kind of hung out on because he does podcast and radio interviews and all that stuff, so it's been kind of nice to get to know him over the past couple years and kind of go back and forth with our live chats with each other. So hello, and so this should be a fun one because he writes some really cool stuff as well. But hope everybody's weekend's been doing well. I always feel like I have a busy week. There was always reasons, but I'm gearing up to do a cover reveal and announce some fun stuff that I've been holding back on because it's just getting everything lined up and prepped and everything. And so I'm kind of excited that way. Let me kind of play around with, I don't know why my lighting, I think it's because it is really dark outside. We're about to get a storm, so hopefully we'll cross my fingers that it doesn't actually lose my internet over the next hour or so. But I see him, so let's see if he can see my invite. Here we go. Always takes a moment to connect, so crossing fingers. There he is. Fantastic. 3, 2, 1.
Hey, how are you?
Hello, I can hear you. Now I see you. How are you?
I'm well, thanks for asking. I appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, well, it's always kind of fun to connect with you because what I was saying to some of the people jumping on right after I got on was that we've been able to talk to each other periodically for various, through various podcasts and radios, and it's always just kind of fun to connect with you and see what's going on and all the fun things. So,
Yeah, my
yeah,
pleasure to
so
be back. It's nice to see you.
yeah, and for anybody who doesn't know, I always like, again, you being the co-host today, I'll let you kind of reintroduce yourself and what you write, and we'll go from there because
Yeah,
I'm a bit
sure.
busy.
Yeah, so my name is JV Hilliard. If you call me JV, I'm not going to answer to that, so just call me Joe. And I write epic and dark fantasy. My Warminster saga, which is a four-book series, concludes this March with the Echoes of Ghostwood, book four, that comes out here right before I go on the Galaxy Con tour, starting in Richmond and ending in Columbus later in the year. So it's going to be a lot of fun. And then later in the summer, I know we'll get into this in a bit. I've got a couple of standalone novels about some of the more popular characters in the series. So I'm excited to get into some of that with you too. So, but thanks, and it's nice to be back. Thank you for allowing me to co-host.
No, I just love it. And like, again, when it comes to epic fantasy, that's so fun for me because that is what I write, that is what I love to read, and it is one of those genres that can be so rich in the world building and the characters and everything. And so for you, now that you're about to wrap up the main series, your 4-book series, how are you feeling about like looking back at your world building and all the characters that you've created throughout your whole series?
Well, first of all, I'm stunned by the reception of it. I am humbled in a way. I mean, I made my first novel, The Last Keeper, made Amazon's bestseller list, and you'd be proud of this in the Viking and Norse category. Both of those, a few months back, and I did it the right way. It wasn't any kind of tricks of the trade or anything, goofy or any kind of legerdemain behind it. It was a year and a half of slugging it through. It was straight up sales, it was promotion, it was marketing, it was things like this to give you the opportunity to really kind of, promote not only yourself as an author and a newbie author, but also promote the series and look, it for me, it's part of it is bittersweet. The story is in my head such a great story, and I loved writing it, and I hated to see it end, but the reception it's gotten from my readership and those in the community, I think is will beget another series down the road. I might not hit that series until I'm done with some of these standalones, which are kind of like origin stories of it. But in all honesty, it's been a lot of fun. It's different than what I expected. I've gotten better as an author, so the stories I believe have gotten better, and there's part of me that wishes I can go back and change some of the things in book one, but the hey, it was well received and better than I anticipated. I wasn't sure what I was going to get when I got into it, and it's just been a home run. I've enjoyed every moment of
Well, I have to admit, I don't know. I feel this is a little sad on my behalf because I am such a slow reader that it takes
it.
forever for anything to cycle through because it goes through this whole cycle. I put it on like my wish list, which is like my e version of my TBR, and then it slowly funnels into this mountain of physical copies, and eventually I get to it. But I actually have your book has made it to the physical TBR, and it's moving up to the top. I your
Nice.
Yeah, I'm so sorry.
No, that's quite all right. I mean, and look, it's epic fantasy, so it's long. It's not going to be something that you're going to be able to, to get through it over a weekend, and the series doesn't get any lighter as it goes on. So, uh, I understand that we all have long TBR lists, and I forgive you. You are absolved of your sins. You're all right.
But yeah, and that's another thing is like different genres, right? I mean, there's different kind of style of writing for different genres, and epic fantasy is again so rich, and again, there's a huge variability within it, but it's one of those that, at least for me, I like to savor. And I'm already a slow reader, but I like to like just try to immerse myself because there is so much going on. There is so much thought about creating a whole new world, and maybe if you have magic systems, and again the characters, their backstories that, I do want to immerse myself in it. So, I love the genre, but it is one of those that I don't think it's necessarily leads to being a quick read, as certain other genres can be quicker.
No. No, I hear you, and I don't mind. Like for me, I grew up on the genre, and in 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 crafting the Warminster saga, a lot of it came from my play as a Dungeons and Dragons guy. Like it was, and those stories have a tendency to be rich. They have a tendency to go long because adventures, in some cases, if you're doing it correctly, could last years.
Yes.
And for me, I was born into this genre by Tolkien and all those that followed, so Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman and R.A. Salvatore and Sanderson and all those guys that write what I write, and some of them don't write as much epic stuff as they do just fantasy adventure, but it kind of really pulled me in, and so some of this is a memorialization of years of gameplay where some of the battles and the scenes and the plot lines and the character arcs are all battle tested, right? They've gone through stuff, and you remember the favorites that you have, and kind of run through all of those memories again as you do it. And then at the back of the books, as you're putting these things in, you're excited to see them come to life for the first time, and other people will be able to experience them, except for your six or seven nerdy friends that sit around and play Dungeons and Dragons with you. So it's been a lot of fun, putting it together. But you're right. I mean, I create my own currency. I've created my own magic system. I've created my own pantheon of gods and therefore religions as part of that, and they affect the day to day living of those that are part of it. A big part of everyone's lives is how they interact with all of those things, and I think it brings something that is just a fantastical world that much closer to something that could be real, and therefore readers could suspend disbelief and get into the framework. So I hope you like it when you get to it.
Oh, I'm excited. I really am very excited. And it is funny because, like, there are a lot of authors on here. Not everybody, because to each their own, and we all have our own kind of side interests. But, like, there's a huge overlap with fantasy people, especially on the epic side, and TTRPG. So, like, D&D and other kind of role-playing games. And they do lend each other, they kind of work so well together because it's character development and
Oh,
backstory
right.
and adventure and the I have like certain opinions about certain things about the whole gaming versus the writing side of things, but it does not give a nice overlap where one of the things, and I don't remember if the last time we talked on one of these podcasts or anything that we've been, but we were talking. One of the things that I kind of kickstarted last year during a Kickstarter was I offered like a D&D edition package where I created a custom
Oh,
made
that's cool.
mini of my main character for my Portal fantasy. That was what the Kickstarter was running for. and had like its own subgenre and character shape. And for you, I feel like that stuff would lend really well with your style of writing, especially since you already mentioned that you are very familiar with that. You pull from that, and I know other authors who have done taken it to another whole other level and come up with like full on campaigns for D&D in their own universes. And I don't know, that may be something you might be entertained with.
I'd love to do it. I think it's a natural next step. Obviously, I have to write outside of that property. So, a lot of my stuff has been cannibalized to be a little bit more generic and less specific to Dungeons and Dragons, but those that play the game or games around that, it doesn't have to be D&D. It could be any kind of role-playing game, like you mentioned. They're going to recognize some tropes and they'll recognize some classes and character arcs and stuff like that, which I think are important for those. But I also know that, look, lit RPG is a big thing these days, and there are people out there that write about their video game stuff and things. So it's not out of the realm of possibility. And even some of those writers I mentioned before, where Margaret Weiss, she worked at Dungeons and Dragons, and she played her characters through, and so for her it was a memorialization of all those campaigns. Or same thing with Salvatore. He did a lot of that same stuff too with his characters, and some of them world famous now. Well, I'm not looking necessarily for that, but I think that if the creation of the realm, it could easily be its own Middle Earth. It could easily be its own Westeros. It lends itself to gamification really easily, and part of that is because it is becoming a video game. I know that we spoke about this at length last summer. I've licensed the intellectual property over to an augmented reality and virtual reality group that's putting it together. That's hoping to launch it in the 2025 time frame, and I've been doing some storyboarding for it, and it's a lot of fun. But you see a lot of those aspects of gaming in the story, and if you're a fan of role-playing games, regardless if it's D&D or anything else, you'll find a home inside the novels. At least I hope.
Yeah, no, and again, I love that. I love the fact that people can immerse themselves in other realms, fantasy call it, or sci-fi, or whatever. Just be able to have your fun escapism, be it, again, different media. So maybe it's books for you, maybe it's a TTRPG or video games, or something visual like a movie. But all that kind of can overlap and build out these fantastical worlds. Look at I know some people have love hate, but look at Harry Potter. But like, they have
Mhm.
this whole immersive reality where you can actually now go to a theme park and just be in what someone created as originally a book story. And I think that is such a cool thing, that there is so much potential to build out different ways.
100%. So like even on, if Potter's something that's become an amusement park, right? Like these things all live in our minds, and I think it's fun to see them come to life in many respects. You mentioned movies. I mean, I'm not at the movie stage. I don't have enough of a following yet, but it's right now, since we last spoke, it's gotten to a point where I'm now in active discussions about publishing a graphic novel series based on the series, and I've got my first sales back, and it's so different. It's just a different medium where you write something and you could take 2 pages to describe whatever you write, where in a graphic novel or a comic book, you've got 8 pictures on a page, and you've got to fit them in, and those pictures have to say exactly what happened in the novel, or at least close enough to it, to draw people in. So now you're looking at it graphically or through an illustration, and it's no longer in your mind. It's now on a page somewhere, and it's got to be close. And you also have to be able to forgive through the storyboarding things that can't be close. I'm never going to get everything that's in my head, and I think that's why people sometimes are disappointed at movies. They read a book and then they go out and see the movie, and they're like, well, wasn't the book was better? Well, of course the book was better. You imagined everything in your head perfectly. And so the characters looked like you wanted them to look, and they did the things you wanted them to do, and the scenes looked exactly what they were. And there's only a few movies, I think, that can be said that really kind of supersede or might exceed expectation from those that have read the books. Is really tough. Even Peter Jackson, to some degree, suffered slings and arrows on Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit because he left out certain characters. And there's only so much you can do. We're in a book, especially in an epic fantasy. I can drone on as long as I want, and people will eat it up. The fans of the genre just love it. They want to go deep. They want the history. They want knowing what's going to happen in the future. They want to know the lineage of the families. They want to know why the sigil for them or the standard for their house is what it is, and all that kind of stuff, and they just don't want it to be a gold piece. So I called mine palmettes or silver laurels or copper sheaves, and it just immerses them in that, and it's just and that's why I like that stuff. I think it appeals to my personality, but I also think it really kind of carves itself out into, if you're a fan of epic anything, I'm talking like I'm wearing a Darth Vader shirt.
No, I was.
If you like space operas, like the space opera stuff is the same thing. You could go on for years, and they have. I mean, Disney's now taken this thing in so many different directions, and it's because you created this entire world, right? So I think that's a lot of fun.
Universe for them. Universe for them. It's more than just a world at this point.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. It's a universe.
But yeah, and that's the thing is you can continue to build and build. And as you were mentioning at the beginning, was you have plans for standalones that are still set within the reality that you've already built for Warminster. So what can we expect after book 4? And your main series is more or less complete at this moment. You never know, but what are the next ones that are coming down? Or you said they were based off various side characters.
Yeah, so it actually started opposite of that. Like I didn't expect to do that, but I will say, going to conventions, going to book signings, people were very demanding, and it's humbling in many respects, right? Like I want to know the backstory of this character, or they tell you about a character that they love that for you is a sidebar character, or somebody that in one case is the villain. Like my favorite character by far is a villain, and I don't know why, but people just love it and they eat it up. And so therefore, what we find is I'll go to these shows, and people will ask me about the backstory of the assassin, right? And it's like, are you kidding me? But so the first novel, the first standalone, is the origin story of my assassin in Canis Drew Eighth. He's a bone elf assassin, and how did he get so despotic, and why is he so heartless? And when you read the backstory, some of which I reveal in book 3, by the way, you get a sense that he wasn't born bad. He was created, and it was something that happened that really drove him to become who he was. And everybody in the world could identify with it, which makes it that much, I think, that much more palatable. And so I think people enjoy it. And I gave a little bit of it because I noticed that after book 1, everybody's like, we want more of him. So, the Black Rose, which will be the first of the series of novels, will come out in the summer of this year and really kind of focus on his backstory. And then Ritter and Adeline, two of the other main characters, by the end of the year. And I hope that buys me enough time to start really deep into the follow-up of the Warminster saga. Because, I like you said, you teased it. You're like, well, maybe it's the end. I think here there'll be like a 7 or 8 year gap
Okay.
between the time we end Echoes of Ghostwood and before we get to the next series beginning, for a variety of very, very, very good reasons, which I'm not going to spoil on here. But that's the goal. So book 1 will come out in the summer, and then book 2 and 3 will come out as a package right around the holidays. Because Ritter and Adeline, there's a little bit of a romance there, and you're going to see both sides of that as part of this too. So it's a lot of fun.
So let me ask, when people do these, because I haven't done this yet with any of my series, where you do a spin-off, either independent standalone or spin-off series, would you prefer your readers to read from the first chronological of publication, or are these standalones, you could read them before, after, doesn't matter, and then still, does that make sense?
It does, and that's a great aha question, right? So what I've done purposefully is allow these books to be read standalone,
Okay.
regardless of where you pick. So if you don't have to read book 1 or the entire series, this book is going to be good enough to give you the backstory of the character, and you'll be able to learn a little bit more. But it doesn't affect your knowledge of anything that happens in the series. So you're not left with spoilers. You're not left on the sideline. You're not, shaking your head saying, I don't understand this. You could pick up The Black Rose and read it, and it's just a fantasy novel. That's all it is. But it chronicles a very important character for the 4 books, and so it lends itself to it, but it stays within the greater realm of Warminster, allowing me to continue to promote the realm itself, and therefore people that might want to buy those standalones could, or if they want to not jump into a series and just test it and see if they like one of the characters. Hopefully, they can do that too.
I love that. Now I'm also seeing you at like conventions and everything with with a banner of like, here's how you options of how you can read the series, standalones or here or this, because that's a question I get all the time because I have multiple series and they're technically standalone series. Please read book one through because I write them that way, but there is no reason why you can't jump from one series to another in any order because they are truly standalone series, totally different universes, totally different worlds. But that's just the way I've written so far. But when it comes to people with all these kind of, again, spin-offs and everything, it is one of those questions people get is, what order, what should I read, what do you advise?
Yeah, and give me 1 second because if you can't tell, I have a panting Siberian Husky running around and he wants to go outside. And his name's Thor, so I thought you'd like that too. Oh, never mind. He's taken care of. We're
Well,
good.
has to meet
We're
both
good.
at some point. But yeah, go let Thor out.
Yeah, yeah. Thor's no, he's good. Yeah, so you're right. First of all, I thought it was important to treat him in the way that you had described, and that way because you could find one on the bookshelf and just read it and not it won't throw off the rest of the series, right? So like, and I think that that was important to me as I did these. I wanted to make sure they were almost in every case, they're prequels, and you learn something about the character's backstory, that origin piece, which is important, that will inform you of what the character is going to do or the role they're going to play in some respect in the series, without giving anything away. So you can see that, oh, well, this is how this character was created, and I get what happened now that led them on this path, which I thought was important. But in terms of marketing, you're right. I mean, we all have to market our books, we all have to market our series, and our products, right? Like we are our brand, and our books are our products. And so when folks, test the waters, I want to make sure that they're excited about reading something else within it. And so for me, yes, the banner in the back. We're also going to do some, kind of giveaways and things like that a little later in the summer. But for the most part, I think that um, I have you as an author, you want to listen to your readers. You can't always agree with them, and you can't always do what they ask you to do. But this was something that I was getting a lot of, like at every convention, and every book signing. It's like, what about this? What about that? We want to know more. And I'm like, well, I've got to finish the series before I can go to that. So, they've been patient, and it's been in some cases a year and change
Mhm.
from when I first started getting some of these questions, and now they're going to get that outcome. They're going to get an opportunity to take a look back and really see what's going on, and get a better understanding of where these their favorite characters came from, and whether they like it or not, they're going to get a taste of it.
I love that. I absolutely love that. And but yeah, no, that is a really cool thing. Again, when people can get that extra taste, and especially when people do prequels or preludes. One of the other authors on here, I just finished his prelude collection and his Z Diamante. And Zach, if you ever listen to this one, I'm going to say this was really cool. What he did is all his preludes they were short stories, not actually independent novels, but they were standalone short stories. Yet when he put them, he kind of compiled them in a collection. He was like, idealistically, if you really want to fit them in perfectly, read this one before you read chapter whatever of your first book. And it kind of fit in, and it was kind of a fun way to do it. You didn't have to do it that way, but it was like, if you really wanted to like just succinctly fit these in so you can read them as an accompaniment of the main book series, here's where you do it. And I thought that was really kind of unique. Again,
Well, you know what else? I ran into a guy at a convention. We shared a booth back in the summer. He wrote his series, which is a 4 book series, in a way where it didn't matter which one you picked up first. It was a different aspect, different perspective than the other characters, but you could read them circularly, and come back, and understand everything that happened as part of it without giving anything away that you're going to read. It was so clever. I was like, "Oh, Brandon, this is good, man. You got something." I don't know how you did it. It would drive me nuts as like a big planner, but he just started writing. He's like, "This is," and you have to plan that stuff out. I was like, "Oh, that's so good." And so I enjoyed reading it through his. He's got the first 2 books out. I've got the second 2. I gotta knock out before I see him in March on the road. So I'm looking forward to completing his series prior to then.
So tell me about this tour because like for me I'm trying to be better personally of going to different events, and I now have made Dragon Con kind of more or less a staple, and I'm trying to start adding some of these others slowly. I'm doing baby steps approach. I don't want to overwhelm myself, but for you with the whole tour, so where are you going? What are you planning so far? Where can people find you and see you and meet you?
Yeah, so GalaxyCon is a four-stage tour that goes through the US, very similar to Comic-Con, except for I mean, look, I'm not William Shatner, right? I'm not or I'm not one of these A-lister actors that you're going to pay hundreds of dollars to come and see. But these things have they go to what I would describe as smaller cities like Raleigh and Richmond and Columbus, and we were in Austin last year. I think this year we're going to someplace in California. But they're overwhelmingly big. Like the one I did in Raleigh last year had 60,000 people at it. I mean, the convention center was at maximum capacity, and I would not. I mean, that kind of exposure is fantastic in a variety of ways. I mean, first I get to sell my stuff, and based on just a volume of people coming through the door, I sold out by Saturday, right? Like literally, I had a day and a half to do nothing except help other people that needed my help because I literally you don't I didn't know what didn't know, which was bring more than you'll ever need, right? You
Now
just it was an accident, right? Like I was like, are you kidding me? But I've sold out in the last two, and ultimately I've learned from that, and it provides you a little level of exposure because they have after hour parties. So I have a chance to speak about what it was like to be a first time author or traditional publishing versus self-publishing, or we even had they had one show called Drunk Disney, and it was basically a debate on different things. So like I was a judge in a contest where one group of nerds debated it was the Care Bears versus the Smurfs who would win in a war, right? And and I'm sitting there, and it's out of control, right? It's literally out of control, and they're going back and forth, and everybody's had a few, and it's 11 o'clock at night, sometimes even later than that, and they're serious, and they're going after each other. But it's the exposure you get from participating in that, where you're seen as a subject matter expert, and for me, it's that kind of stuff where you get to meet your readership and or make new readers that are there. And even if they don't buy your book, sometimes they come by and they follow up with an email. They take your card, they grab a bookmark or a sticker or something off the table. And in my case, I'm nerdy, right? So I sell other things. Like I have D&D dice bags with
Yeah.
logos on them, and I give away bags with my, and people are walking around the convention center that has JV Hilliard on their backs because that's where they put all their stuff. So I didn't care. It cost me like 30 cents to make a polyester bag, and I give it to them, but it has and then everybody looks at it and they're like, oh, I saw that this person had your bag. And it helps with sales. It helps with promotion. It helps with name recognition, all those things, because, I'm with a small publishing house, and I don't have a publicist. I don't have an agent. So you have to do this stuff, really dig in on your own. You have to find fun ways to do that, and conventions are a great way to do that. And so if you budget for it correctly, and in some cases you learn what works and it doesn't work on the fly, but you adopt those best practices like you would in any other business, and then invest in those things where they're making an impact, and learn from your mistakes, and don't reinvest in those that don't work.
Exactly. And actually, that works very well for this question that popped up just a moment ago saying, I'm a new author,
Okay.
published October 11th with the debut book, Nora, The Lives of the Royals. Any promotion advice?
Oh my goodness. First of all, congratulations. Welcome to the realm, right? You're now part of this brother and sisterhood. So congratulations on doing that, and welcome. Secondly, yeah, I've got three pieces of advice in terms of promotions. The first is don't be shy about going to events that aren't going to be super successful, right? There's something to be said. Like I've been to library book signings where I've had three people show up, but that's three more people that you add to your email list. It's three more people that care that you drove out of your way to come and see them and talk to them and spend time with them. They will buy your book, and they'll buy the follow-up books. and you build from that. And the next time you go back to the same library, you're hoping you see 20 or 50 or 100 people that come out for those things because they're going to tell, right? So get out on the road, do as many book signings as you can, do as many shows like this as you can, because part two of my answer is social media is free, except for the time value of money you put into it, right? So, yes, it's an hour on a Sunday that I'm doing this. I could be doing something else, but this, I'm reaching other people, including, this new writer who might not have known who I was prior to this and might be interested in learning a little bit about the realm of Warminster and what I've been able to do and is asking a question, right? So that kind of stuff is impactful. And so using that tool of social media to promote, market, and advertise your wares is fantastic because it is free and earned media is or paid media is so expensive, and it's just for the big dogs, right? I'm not J.K. Rowling. I'm not Stephen King. I don't have publishers and publicists falling all over me to get my next book. So while I'm making my way through the minors and graduating up every year, hopefully, that's a place where you and I can find success because people do buy books. You and I found each other online,
Yeah.
right? So, like, you've done shows with me, I've done shows with you. If it wasn't for the fact that we are both active in social media, we wouldn't be here doing this. So, and so, it's a big, big tool, and the third thing I would say, excuse me, is if you can, and it makes sense for you, try out some of these conventions, right? So it doesn't have to be a specific fit for you, but if you're writing fantasy adventure, you're writing sci-fi, you're writing dystopian, even horror, there are conventions out there that, yes, it is a couple $100, use some more than a couple $100 to be at some of these places, but that's where your readers are, right? As much as we try to sell to our friends and our family, they're mostly not our readers. And it's frustrating. In the beginning, you want to sell to them, and they might buy your first book out of courtesy. But after that, if they don't read your genre, they're not going to buy the next. And then they're going to feel like you're pushing them to do it. Or what they'll do is even worse, is they'll buy it and give it to five other people to read instead of telling the others to buy it for themselves. And like that goes over their head. But these conventions are exactly where your readers are. And if you identify with the folks that are coming to this, if you're a horror novelist or you write in the gothic, you write about monsters, you're going to go to these horror fests and people are going to buy it. And then you're going to build your list from that and they're going to know you and they're going to say, oh, I know that person. And I'm going to invite them to come on my show or I'm going to invite them to come to the next one and things. And you don't have to go all over the country just yet. You can go local stuff. There's always going to be, enough of that that's within driving distance or one day events where you have like, library thons where they'll have 20 local authors in. You find those opportunities, beat the bushes, do those kind of things. And those conventions, I mentioned Raleigh had 60,000 people in it last year. Richmond, I'll be there in about 6 weeks. They're going to have 30 or 35,000 people. I couldn't buy that kind of exposure. And these are people that have paid to come to see you. Right? They're coming to see your booth. They want to know what you're peddling. And sometimes they're just in line to get signatures and autographs and take pictures with folks, and that's great too. But they paid a couple $100 to get there, and they're going to walk around and see you, and you have a chance to pitch them. And I can tell people when they walk by my booth the kind of person they are. If they're not a reader, they walk straight by. They look over and they glance like books, I'm gone, and they keep going. Don't even try to engage with them. You're wasting your time and theirs. Then you get the second type of person that walks by and they do the glance over their shoulder and they slow up as they're walking by. You know that they're a reader. They might be with other people that are readers, but if you address them directly and you say to them, what do you read? What do you like to read? Or hello, hi, come on over. Don't be afraid. Take a look. I'm selling some books. I wrote these. They'll always stop by and take a, you might not get every sale, but they're going to pick up your card. They might leave their name for your mailing list and all that kind of stuff. And the third kind are the people that just make a beeline for your booth. They're like, I read, and they're just coming over. You have a book, and they're tired of seeing the people that are in line for the special effects or the meeting the actors and actresses or whatever. They're here to pick up new material. So you have a chance to directly hit them. And, like I said, you're selling 60, 80, 100, 200 books at some of these places. And, one Saturday last summer, there was a library, local author thing, maybe 45 minutes from my house. I drove down. I sold 54 books there because everybody that came was there to buy books,
Yep.
and you can't get that kind of exposure. So as much as it might be a hassle, do it because you're going to get exposure. People are going to know who you are, and then you're going to grab that email from them so that when you're ready to send out an email saying, "Hey, this is the second book or my third book," you now have captured them and they know who you are, you know who they are, and it's a way for you to build, and then you'll start to build momentum on your sales based on that second, third, and fourth, and hopefully hundreds of other books that you write as part of this too over the course of your career.
Well, I have a couple of things to add on to yours pertaining to that. One being is if you look at conventions, and again, for me, I was very hesitant doing the sales side of things, but there's also opportunities to do panels. And why they're important, you don't have to be 100% an expert on it. You can just be honest of where you are and say, hey, I published a book. I'm indie or small print or whatever you are, mid level, and just say, this was my experience. And not only are you, again, getting your name out there, you are also potentially being able to learn and connect with other writers and authors who can become a support team for you too. And you can also take sessions too. If you really want to learn this, depending on the convention, then you may go to a literary convention and they may have stuff that helps you learn and educate and grow yourself. So that's always a great thing. Again, kind of reiterating on what you just said a little bit ago, Joe, is like, social media, it's free. Never be afraid to ask for help. I'm horrible about that. I'm always like sneaky behind the scenes trying to like search answers. I hate asking questions. But this is here. The author and writer and the bookish community here is so friendly. You just ask a question, say, hey, I need advice. You'll get probably more advice than you ever need. But you will get advice. So that's a nice thing. There are so many ways to approach marketing books. And there's no necessary one right way, wrong way. It's just you have to figure out where you're comfortable with, what you want to do, what you can afford, because some things cost money and some things are free, and you kind of navigate it that way. But it's asking for help and hearing suggestions. That's an easy thing to do. And there are so many people who are willing to be like, hey, let me help you out. Let me give me a tip or trick or anything. So that's my thing.
100%.
Thank you. Oh, thank you. Yeah, that's yeah. You're welcome. Glad. That's why I love doing these things. If anybody has questions, ask. Again, can't guarantee I am the expert, but we're here to try to give us our personal experience, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And there can be some ugly sighs, but
Unfortunately, yes.
but it happens. It happens. And the thing is, like, I'm totally indie, so I'm learning everything and on my own. And if I don't make that effort, then I'm not learning. How can you improve without trying? But for you, Joe, like again, if you did I ask you this at all at any point? Do you ever come down? Because I don't remember what state you live in. You don't have to say, but like since I'm in and around Atlanta area, there's Dragon Con, which is a huge one that you might benefit from because you're comfortable doing the whole sales booths, and they have so many options for authors, from full-on weekend sale booths to a one-night fantasy sale, which just collects the, just microcosm of people, to panels, to all this kind of stuff. And I don't know, I was just saying, it'd be kind of fun to meet you face to face.
Man, it's funny that you say that because I'm filling out the Dragon Con form right now. It just opened this past week, in fact, a couple of days ago, and I'm dying to come down there because it's a big marketplace, and of course, I will have a chance to put a name with a face finally and meet you in person. But ultimately, it's a selective process. It's juried. I didn't know that, and it's really cool. And I don't mind. Iron sharpens iron, and I hope they look at me and they say, hey, this guy's worth bringing in. He'll be good not only for Dragon Con, but also can use me for a variety of other things. Like I'd be more than happy to do the speech stuff or classes or whatever it needs to be to make that work. But I'm looking forward to that. And yes, I have started to do that. I make enough sales now that it makes sense for me to do some of that. Like I live in Pennsylvania, so
Okay.
Richmond's pretty close to me, and I used to go to DC a lot for a previous day job, and then Raleigh, it's a 45-minute flight. It's not that far. It's just a little bit, and Atlanta for me. I mean, everybody flies through Atlanta, so it's pretty simple to do, and it's a hop, skip, and a jump. It's some of the other ones that I haven't had a chance to get to the West Coast as much as I'd like. There's a lot of creative minds out there that I'd love to get in front of, and I'm hoping that the one GalaxyCon this year will get me out there. And if my voiceover actor um, lives in LA, and I owe him a long overdue visit as part of this. And he's a true he does more than just voice acting. So I'm going to get a chance to get out there and meet some of his folks too, and talk about what I'm doing from a franchise or a product perspective, and learn a little bit more about that too. But yeah, I've been at some strange places. I'm going to there's a Viking Con over in Ohio, which is about a 45, maybe an hour and 10-minute drive from me in Pittsburgh. And it's just a big Viking festival over a weekend.
Wait, when is
And I
how do I
What's
sign up?
that?
Because I do have my Viking series.
I know you do. I know you do. So there might be a return trip in your future coming up my way, and I'll send you some of that. So like that's the thing. Like I've gone to, because I write epic fantasy that includes some dark fantasy. I've gone to horror fests. I've done things like this even though the Vikings are only a portion of what I write about in a greater realm. Ultimately, it's still a nice fit, and I'm going to be one, maybe two authors there. So if anybody's there that's interested in my stuff, bam, it's a perfect fit for me. Now, it might not be as big as some of the Comic Cons and stuff like that, but I'll take it. You know what I mean? I'll definitely take it. So I think it's worth it, even if you learn something from it and you see that, hey, I did this wrong, but I'm not going to do it wrong again. Or now I know how to do it right. That kind of stuff I think is real helpful. But I'm hoping that they accept me at Dragon Con because I'm coming if I can get there. I mean, the name on the door, Dragon Con. Yes, that screams me. I should be
Exactly.
there.
That would be so much fun because I will admit, like, I've now met several different authors that are on this particular platform, Book Talk, and actually met them face to face there. And it's just so cool being like, hi!
Eh,
I've seen you online. We've talked behind the scenes, or even like doing live streams or whatever. But it's nice to like meet people face to face. But on that note, also another one where it took me a couple years too long. I don't know why I was so hesitant. Was on the educational again, going back to always try to educate yourself to become a better author, writer, marketer because this is a business. Um, what was I'm trying to think. It was the Vegas 20 books to 50K. Now it's being rebranded to Author Nation this coming year. But I finally did that. I took the jump, did that this past fall, and it was so worthwhile. And I can totally say if any author is able to, it is probably pricey, especially if you don't live near that area, and I don't. But it was so educational, and they have everything from like the preliminary staging of learning how to world build all the way to extreme advanced marketing and advertising and the networking with authors who are like some of the top indie and small print all around the world. It was such a cool experience. So I do advise that one for anybody who is able to figure out how to do it. That one's definitely worth it.
yeah, I have a friend who flew from Australia to be there this
Yeah,
year.
people I
Uh, eh,
all around the
Big
world.
time, big time.
I would advise it. I would totally advise it.
And it's Vegas. I mean,
It was Vegas. My first
it,
time at Vegas too. I was just like, I was so enamored with the book community. I barely left the hotel because I was just having so much fun meeting the book people. And then
oh no.
outside the window, there's all this going on too.
Next November, we got to plan that one. That will
Oh,
be a good one.
it's Dragon Con. Yeah, it's Dragon Con and Author Nation are the next two things I'm trying to apply slash budget for accordingly. In Atlanta, I recently discovered Multiverse Con's a thing. So that's another one.
Ooh,
It's a literary fantasy, gaming, art based one. So that's another one I'm trying to, again, baby steps. I'm trying to slowly expand to other things. I don't want to overwhelm myself.
just took my notes. I'm gonna make
Yes.
sure.
Always take notes. That's all I'm like. I always am writing notes. Trying to, again, educate ourselves. We will never be an expert because the publishing field is going to change. It's always going to change.
Mhm.
So never, I don't know. I would never ever claim to be an expert. All I can say is these are my experiences. So,
Nothing wrong with that.
so with you, let me actually, since we're hitting the 3/4 mark of these, and I always want to, if this platform is nice to me, sometimes it's not. I've had a few weird ones, But if it's nice to me and I'll be able to repurpose this on my YouTube channel, I'll make sure to put all your information down below. But for anybody who's listening live, where can people find and follow you outside of Book Talk? So website, other socials, newsletter, what do you have that people can stalk you?
Yeah, it might surprise you that I have a website, jvhilliard.com. I know
What?
that's really going to be hard to remember. And then I am at JV Hilliard Books on a lot of the social handles. So if you look for me on Twitter/X or TikTok or Insta or YouTube, you'll find me at JV Hilliard Books. On Facebook and Discord, I'm just JV Hilliard. I had those before I was an author, so that's where I was when I started. I wasn't going to migrate off of those. And then my books, as you mentioned, are available pretty ubiquitously. I mean, I prefer you go to my publisher's page, dragonmoonpress.com, and buy them there. But if you are a fan of, Amazon or iTunes, and you want to download an audio or an e-copy of them, they're available in all formats. So from Audible all the way to Kobo, Rakuten, you name it, it's out there. You'll find it. Just JV Hilliard and books, and you'll find me somewhere.
And that's a great point of when you're small press, when you're mid press, when you're indie, buy closer to the source. One, it helps the author a bit more. Usually,
Just,
I can't say always, usually we get a better cut for our work than mine through some of the big box companies. And that's fine. Do whatever you want to do. But just throw that out there because I just started doing direct sales and I'm just like, I'm horrible at marketing myself. I'm that person I was a Girl Scout and I hated selling Girl Scout cookies. It was the worst time of my life. I did not like selling stuff. Guess what? I was like, oh, I'm going to be a writer. It's going to be great. And I'm like, oh, I have to sell my own stuff.
yeah. Imagine that. Yeah, I know.
I hate to, but like, yes, just as for people who are readers, if an author sells direct, support them directly. I know it's a step away from maybe what you're used to, but it helps us more. But yeah, so your print house was, what was name it again? It was I heard the dragon.
dragonmoonpress.com.
Dragon Moon Press. So there you
Yeah,
go.
it's hard to forget that one.
I love it. I absolutely love it.
Yeah.
Then again, I have an unhealthy obsession with dragons, so that is a thing.
That's okay. Folks, and I mean it's endearing in our circles. We're all right.
It is.
I swear we're all right. I hope we're all right.
Your sci-fi shirt I'm sorry. It took me and I kept staring at it and then it was just like I started trying to not to chuckle, but I was like, I can't help it.
Oh, I wear this. You'd be surprised. Like some people will be like, 1 out of 10 people will be like, I get that, and it'll take them a while. And a 1 out of 100 will be like, oh, I really get that. Like at first it's like, oh, this is Major League Baseball. And then you see the Darth Vader helmet and the lightsaber in Luke's hand. And you're like, wait a minute, clever stuff. So like I found this, it was called Busted Tees. And they have a bunch of stuff that's like this, just like joking around, real clever, nerdy stuff. And, of course, I'm both a sports guy and a Star Wars guy, so this fitted pretty well. And it's a nice conversation starter. So you wear this at a convention somewhere, and they walk by, and you'll get a lot more recognition at geekathons, like Dragon Con. A lot of people will be like, "Oh, cool shirt," because,
Yeah.
but most people, you're sitting in a bookshop somewhere, they're not going to get it.
But no, I was gonna say definitely for Dragon Con that would be popular. But that's when I went to the 20 Books now is rebranded to Author Nation coming year. But I wore every day. I wore a T-shirt, but it was one of my bookish T-shirts. So they were either author jokes or literary jokes or something because I was like, I'm in the community that someone's gonna pause and get a chuckle.
What a great conversation starter, icebreaker, whatever. People are going to know, oh, well, she's got a personality or else she wouldn't be wearing that shirt.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
So also, let me ask you because the hours. I feel like our conversations are actually not as long as you think they are when you speak an hour. You're like, oh my god, an hour, but they actually speed by. But I always want to make sure that we covered the bases. So anybody listening, this also applies to you. So is there any question you wanted to ask that you haven't asked or any topic that you wanted to kind of cover that you haven't covered, an announcement? So because you're super active, I want to make sure you let all of us know what you want us to know.
Yeah. Well, I'll if I, can I slide two in?
Yes, do it. That
Okay. The first thing I would suggest is for those that are starting and haven't ever done this before, there is a tool out there that if you don't hate Amazon, Kindle Vella is a place for you to kind of start and introduce yourself. Now, I purposely wrote a Kindle Vella story, which was a young adult fantasy about a siren and her coming of age story because I don't write small and I wanted to write small. And Kindle Vella is you're basically supposed to be putting together these little episodes that are no shorter than 800 words, no longer than 2,500 words, but there's an expectation that it's going to be the next episode and the next episode, and the next episode, and eventually you can knit them all together and publish them as a book on Amazon. It's a really cool tool and a serialization of your story. And it's a way to kind of test things, right? Because you can always change on Amazon. You're not married to it forever, but it's a really cool tool for those that want to get something published for the first time and figure out stuff and how to promote and how it works. And you get that first thumbs up there. You're like, oh yes, someone read it and they liked it, right? But it's a nice way to do it in a short form. There's no rules to it. So if your story is 6 episodes long, it's 6 episodes long. It's just 40 episodes long, 40 episodes long. And I find that as a really good tool for authors who have never, they've been afraid to take a dip. They're going to stick one toe in and that's it. Well, that's a real nice toe or something like that. And segue to my second one is I own a magazine called Altered Reality Magazine or alteredrealitymag.com. And it's a for the love of site. So I don't make any money at it. My sponsors basically cover the costs of it. I don't pay anybody for the stuff that they put on it, but it's a collective of people that have won, pushcart awards way at the top and people that are looking for the first portal of publication down below. And it's for speculative fiction and speculative poetry of any kind. So if you write in fantasy and adventure, or if you write in dystopian, if you write in gothic, if you write in horror, it doesn't matter. Sci-fi, you're going to find it on the site. I even have a horror poet on the site who's now published a book because she entered into Altered Reality Mag and found that she really likes it. So she's put together a collection of poems and is launching that later on this year. And so it's a lot of fun. It's a community. You get to meet people on there. We have poets of the month, authors of the month, new poets of the month. We try to promote everybody through different social media stuff. Again, things that are cross promotional, but it also gives you a chance to kind of test the metal to see if it's something you want to do. Because when you start to write, you have to keep writing. I think it was the Beatles who once famously said that you could take as long as you want to put out your first album. Then beyond that, people are going to want more and more and more. And so it's a way for you to test it and say, do I have what it takes to continue to write, to come up with new ideas, to make them creative, make them worth it, and you get a chance to test it in a small way. It's just like it's that first bite, it's the appetizer. And I think that that's a tool out there, magazines like mine, and there are plenty of others like them, and or like a Kindle Vella that'll get you kind of into the groove, and you'll see if this is something that you can make as a career or a side hustle, or hey, I tried it and thought I was going to like it and didn't like it as much, and I didn't have to write a whole book to find that out.
No, and I love that. And actually, going back to that point, so I might have to reach out to you because I finally it for me, I'm so focused on all my long series that it takes forever to like refocus on a smaller scale to do like a short story. But I do want to challenge myself periodically to write short stories. One, to give things to local some of my super fans, so the people who are my VIP readers on my Facebook group, or people who are on my newsletter subscribers, because hey, you're hanging out with me, I want to like give you something. And so one of the projects that I did this past year, and I might do it again, is trying to think long term, trying to be better about this versus being always caught up in the now. And I have, like, going back to also to your D&D idea, not your concept of authors and D&D overlap so well that one of my D&D characters, I decided that I want to come off and write a series based around her and various things and come up with whole new world buildings. But again, it's kind of a nod back to a character that I developed for that kind of gameplay, so you'll get a good kind of tie-in. If you play those games, you'll be like, I kind of see that there, because it's gonna be thematically similar. But what I did for my Facebook VIP group, my readers group, essentially, I let them create a monster. And I told them it's going to be for this future series, and I gave them a little taste and give them ideas, and I worked them through because people were like, I don't know what to do. So I was like, okay, first we need to come up with how they think, how they see the world, their environment, because that'll help with their attributes. And we ended up coming up with a monster. And as a thank you, I wrote a short story for them based off the monster they created, set in this future universe that I'm going to develop. And so I'm like, I'm about to, it was exclusive for them for a little bit, but I'm about to be able to start sharing it with other people. And I'm like, maybe I'll send that, maybe I'll apply that one to your magazine. Because I know we talked about that one point, and I was like, I never have time.
It would be fantastic. And I'm going to tell you something else. I did something similar. Um, I was asked to come to a handful of libraries and Dungeon Master. They had about 30 people that wanted to play D&D, and because of my, D&D connectivity, they're like, "Well, can you come out and Dungeon Master one of these groups?" And I gave away some free books and stuff. I had a great time. But as part of it, I suggested that the characters that they made up for this one shot, that I would take their names and embed them in my novels and give their characters names. So I like what you did. The monster idea is fantastic, and I'm going to tell you this right now. I'm going to steal it from you. I'm not going to tell anybody it was your idea, and I'm going to do it on my own because I think that's badass. So,
I
well
don't,
played. I
honestly,
love the fact that you gave me that idea. It's so great.
evolution of an idea from another author. We all inspire each other. This is why you meet a lot of authors. But I was, I met another author at DragonCon, and her perspective was make your readership, she was like, make them come, force them essentially to become your family, because you want them to invest in your stories and everything. And so just taking that concept and playing around in my head, and I'm like, I don't like this whole like forcing. That sounds like a little too intense to me. But the concept of, if you ask them to help you build something, all of a sudden they are like, well, now I want to know where that goes. And so, especially when you're developing something for down the line, it just made sense. And I was like, hey, if you guys, plus I'm still finishing up other projects, you're helping me kind of like kickstart the creativity behind the scenes. If you help me set things, scenarios, because now I know I have to have, because the deal was they created a monster. It has to be at least glimpsed, dealt with, cross paths in the first book. So I'm like, well, now I have to have some kind of sea-based scene. So then as I'm developing this continent, I'm like starting to think like, where is that? So it is actually helping me with this original world building for a new series. But yeah, feel free to do it. It's fun. And then again, it's a way your readers can help kind of just invest themselves and have fun kind of with the author co-creating things. So be it a character, be it a monster, be it a kingdom, whatever, go do it.
Love it. It's a great idea.
It's
Well done.
just like, I like sharing things. That's again that give and take of different authors and writers. It's beautiful. Okay, so you have a couple standalones, maybe more, and then you were talking about you're going to have a time gap, and we're going to go potentially back into Warminster in another kind of main sub-series. Are you ever going to write something outside of Warminster, or are you going to continue to kind of
Oh
like
yeah.
just
Oh
still?
yeah. So anything I do that's fantasy related is going to be in Warminster. I just feel like I've already created the realm. I can continue to add to it. And I think that there's value in that. I mean, like Tolkien didn't write outside of Middle Earth. He created Middle Earth with all that to be in it so that the story would never end. Or Star Wars. Hey, we're in their galaxy far, far away in a time long, long ago, and there's rules and there's no rules, right? You can do whatever you want. So I think I want to continue to build that. So this Kindle Vella series that I have has nothing to do with the original series, but it's set in the same realm, and so it kind of launches into that. I've got this other, my new D&D character is half Dark Elven and half Medusa, and she's yeah, and so I'm creating this really kind of blood hunter-ish kind of character after her, like Witcher kind of character, where I'm playing her now, and then I'm going to take bits and pieces of the good parts of the story and add that to the story with her, like, and her goal is really to find her mother and kill her because she feels she's been cursed with this, and she doesn't know the story behind it, so she's learning it as she goes, which is cool. And so I'm using games for that too. So for me, the one to answer your question directly, the one thing I am going to do is I want to write vampire novel. I have a great idea for a vampire novel, and it wouldn't be a standalone, I don't think. But I've always been afraid of crossing the Rubicon, where it's like, my name, like Stephen, it's going to say Stephen King in a romance section. Like I don't know how J.B. Hilliard translates into a horror section, but I have it in me, and I know I want to do it, and I just want to be the best author I can be at the time I write it. So I'm hoping that like by book 10, I'll have enough guts to go out there and find the courage to put this together because it's already mapped out. I know where I'm going with it.
I love it. And I do not volunteer as tribute, but I think it would be kind of fun. Think about like now I know so many authors who again it's that cohabit not cohabitation that kind of good overlap of TTRPG, D&D, and writing. It would be kind of cool to get a collective of various authors who play this and have their characters all come together for a campaign, a multi live streamed campaign, one shot.
That is so good. That is so
I
good.
do not volunteer as tribute because I cannot even fathom how I am not going to be the DM for that. But wouldn't that be cool where you have like a bunch of epic fantasy or maybe not even epic fantasy, could be other kind of authors come together and be like, here's our character, take us on a quest.
I would love that. I would DM the heck out of that. I've been a D. I'm almost like a steady DM. Like there's only been since I was 13 maybe was the last time I played a character until I talked to one of my friends. I was like, I've been doing this for like 2 decades, man. Like I gotta play. Like all I've been doing is DMing, which is a great way to learn how to storytell, right? So like it's easy that you're taking that from, in a verbal communication into written one, and if you've got the skill to do that, you can make that work. But for me, I would I you don't have to I'll volunteer as tribute to DM, and if you put it together, I don't have the tech chops to make it happen, but I can DM the hell out of that. I'm down. I am
Okay.
down.
I have to go figure out like I have to like now start thinking about like who all that I've talked to on this platform. I think I know a few, but it would take a moment to like actually try to figure out for some people
Uh,
characters and make them playable characters. But if that can happen, that would be really kind of fun because I will say I think I could get a good half dozen or more, but we don't want a large campaign group. I feel like
yeah,
one shot. Like, what is a good number for a one shot, Mister DM?
five or six, five or six.
That's
If you
a,
get too many,
yeah, you don't.
and who knows? Maybe it lives beyond the one shot. Maybe it's a 6 pack. I don't know, but you know, in all honesty.
Oh,
I don't know. I have faith in you, my young Padawan learner. I'm certain you can pull this together. Pull it together and just be the tech guru behind it, and I'll DM it. You've got your DM right here. This guy. This guy.
okay, well now, okay, wait. Actually, I know people do one shots on this platform. Sorry, my dog's hair just floated in front of me. He's alone. He has very long hair because he's an Irish Wolfhound. Name Odin. Again, Odin must mean Thor one day.
Of
But
course.
said, um, how would you run that? Because it would have to be on an online like Roll20 or something, right? I would feel like
Yeah, so you can use any of those individual platforms. God, I mean, at this point, as long as you trust the players, you can use Zoom, Skype, TikTok. It doesn't really matter. Yes, I mean, it would be great if I could see what you're rolling, but at the end of the day, if you're gonna cheat in a one shot, like,
I mean, like if you're trying to like live stream it so other people can see it would be a good question, but we'll see. Pausing there for a second, but I don't know. So what does everybody else think? I think that would be a fun thing to do.
yeah, I would love it. I would absolutely love it. I think so I think there's a variety of ways you can do it. And I play D&D, in fact, tonight at 6 o'clock, my time. I'm playing from 6 to 10 with my group. We play every Sunday or every other Sunday. Because people have families and jobs and stuff. They have to travel and stuff. But we do it, over Zoom slash Skype slash whatever. We used to do it all together, and when we get together for holidays, we still do it, face to face and have a good time with it because we're all scattered around the country these days. But ultimately, that's the easy part. It's really coming up with a campaign, and I've done enough one shots that would work out just fine. We could pull that off.
Okay, now I'll have to think about it. I can't guarantee when this would like happen because my life's going crazy.
Don't back out on me now.
Oh, no, no, no.
Don't back
My husband
down.
and I are actually going to close on a house in a couple weeks, so had to get to the moving. So this might be like a late summer thing.
Excuses, excuses,
I think
excuses.
I actually talking about Dragon Con authors. I met another author here who's on this platform, Marshall J. Moore, and we're going to be doing a painting from TTRPG miniatures, Viking miniatures, next week together. I think it's like next week together. We're meeting for something to do that. So I can get people together. I just need to find a good time, and we'll have to like arrange something behind the scenes. But because
Loving it.
you have something coming up in another hour or so, and the fact that
I
we
do.
our hour, I want to say thank you so much for hanging out with me again because I love hanging out with you whenever I can. So
I love it too. It's been a lot of fun, and the hour went by like 15 minutes. It always does. I think, uh, you're an engaging host, and thank you very much again for the opportunity to come on and share this, this last hour and change with you. And be more than happy to introduce you to the folks at GalaxyCon, get you on that tour as well. And maybe if the gods will allow it, I will. I'll be accepted at Dragon Con, and I'll be able to see you down there and put a name on the
be
face.
so much fun. I would
I would like
absolutely.
that.
But
I
I will
love it.
let you go because again, you have some cool things down the just in a little bit. And talking about dogs, it's about time to let out my giant war.
No problem.
Irish wolfhounds are little, big, big, big babies, big babies. Anywho, but yeah, anytime you want to do this, let me know. I do them weekly. Again, plan in advance, but I love hanging out with you. So,
Well, thank you again, and thank you very much for the invitation. And the feeling is definitely mutual.
well, we will talk soon, and thank you for everybody who's come in and hung out with us for the last hour or so.
So thank you.
Bye.